Sanbonani Molweni, it is your girl Londi, and welcome to Study with Londi. On today's episode, we'll be doing the poem at a funeral, so sit back, relax, and let's get into today's video. Line number 1, black, green, and gold at sunset, pageantry. So in this poem, whenever we're looking at the colors black, green, and gold, or in this beginning line, whenever we're looking at black, green, and gold, two things should stay in the back of your mind, or you should know two things. Yeah? The first thing is that these colors represent a political party. So looking at the ANC specifically. And the next thing that should be coming into your mind are graduation robes or gowns. So whenever people graduate or at graduations, you would see some of these colors on their graduation robes. So because of the colors that are used in this poem, now we automatically should know that this is a political poem or there's a political meaning behind this poem. Those things should be clocking at the back of your brain. The next word we're going to be paying attention to is at sunset. So sunsets are typically symbolic of the end of life, the end of something. So whenever you see sunset in this poem, it's to do with the end of a life. It's to do with the end of something. And then the last word we'll be looking at is pageantry. So if you know what a pageant is, you'd know it's like these big elaborate shows or displays of a show or of like a competition, right? And the fact that they are calling this ceremony pageantry, it means it's this big, elaborate, beautiful, formal display, but then it's hollow or it's just for show. Line number 2, and stubbled graves expectant of eternity. So the word stubbled graves gives this idea of an untidy, neglected, with like rough patches of grass growing in between graves maybe. It gives that idea of like a neglected gravesite. So the word expectant gives us some sort of personification for the graves, right? Expectant. So what is a grave for? A grave is for burying people, or that is where people's bodies are put. So the fact that this grave is expectant, it kind of gives off this idea that the grave is hungry and waiting for more bodies so it can be fed, or this grave is just waiting for more bodies, to come in and be buried in it. The word eternity there then just suggests that once the dead are buried there, they will remain there forever. It's just a reminder of how permanent death is, or it can be seen as a reference to the afterlife. In bride's white, nurse's white veil, the nurses gush their bounty of red wine cloaks frothing the bugle dirging slopes. So red wine cloaks refers to the red lining of the nurse's uniform, and it can also be symbolic of blood and sacrifice. Sorry, let's just go back to the imagery that we get there by white. So when it comes to the color white, right, the imagery that we're given or the way they're telling us about this white is very interesting. So it says in bride's white. So when you're thinking of a bride, we're thinking of someone who's about to get married. Someone's going to start this new life with their new husband. So we're thinking new beginnings. And then it says nuns white veils. So when you're thinking of a nun, you're thinking of someone that's holy, that's pure, and that's innocent. So all of these symbols of white, or the white they're describing to us, is this white that is innocent and pure and holy, and it also has to do with new beginnings. What new beginnings? Who was innocent? So the next part we're going to tackle is the gushing their bounty, or gush their bounty. So the word, that part just refers to like an overflow of emotions, right? This can be an overflow of grief because they're at a funeral, and this can be an overflow or their generosity because they are nurses. Nurses are people who typically try to help and save lives. The next part of this poem we're going to look at is bugle dirging. So that is typically a funeral song or funeral music that is played on a bugle, and that is normally associated with the military, or it just suggests that this is a military funeral. And then looking at the word slopes, so slopes has to do with the landscape, and that is just some sort of personification, or it's personified to say that nature itself is also mourning. Salute, then ponder all this hollow panoply. The word salute there is a command, and the nice thing about this command word, it is attached to an exclamation mark which shows strong emotion, What strong emotion are we showing? The command. Yeah. And what is it about this command that stands out is that it's to honor the dead, like you would honor a soldier. Looking at the word hollow, panel P, or however you pronounce that. So basically, this just shows that this was a splendid or an impressive display of a ceremony. But at the end of the day, it was just hollow. It was meaningless because at the end of the day, someone did lose their life, someone did die, and a bit of hope was lost. At this point, something that we should also realize is that the poet is also urging us as their reader to think deeply about the meaning of this ceremony and not just look at the outward appearance of, oh, it's a funeral, but let's look deeper at the meaning behind this ceremony. For one whose gifts the mud devours with our hope. So the one, or for the one, that one, this refers to Valencia. So Valencia was a newly qualified doctor. She recently graduated. Her gifts just refers to the talents and the skills she now has or had because she is or was a doctor. And then mud devours, so that's just personification of the graves, that the grave was very greedy in consuming her and her talents and society's hope also. Oh, all you frustrated ones, powers tombed in dirt. So the apostrophe there just shows that the poet is directly addressing the dead. So the frustrated ones just refers to anyone whose dreams have been cut short because of death that was caused by oppression. So the part that says powers tombed in dirt, this just shows us that their potential has been buried with them or that their potential is now wasted in the ground. I think of the time Tyler the Creator said, I hate wasted potential.
Like, I hate wasted potential. That shit crushes your spirit.
Aborted, not by death, but carrion books of birth. Aborted there. So think of like an abortion. So this basically just means that these were lives that were ended before they could truly begin, or these were lives that could never reach their full potential. Then canon books of birth. This just refers to the past book, so the Dompas during the apartheid government's rule. So the poet is just suggesting there that the apartheid rule or the apartheid laws were able to kill people more effectively than death itself. So the apartheid government was better at killing people than death itself. So we get that idea by canon, so like dead flesh vibes. So if you're looking at this at the original poem, you would see that death has like a capital letter, and basically it is personified, right? And it is basically telling us that death is blameless in the killing of these people, unlike the apartheid. Arise, the brassy shouts of our freedom stirs our earth. So arise there with an exclamation mark is basically a call to action. It's a command. It's a command for us to rise up and resist. Freedom is also personified, and then it also has a capital letter. So this basically just emphasizes or shows the importance of freedom. And then freedom has this brassy shout. Brassy also links to the bugle sound that we had a few lines ago. And now this time it's not to do with mourning, but it is a call for rebellion. You understand? It's basically a call to action. The sound is now transformed. And if we're looking at the tone of this part of the poem, it's no longer this like somber and mournful tone, but it's now defiant and revolutionary. You know, we want a revolution. Not death, but death's tyranny sighs our ground. So death's heads the tyranny symbol there. This refers to the apartheid regime, and it is being compared to the Nazis. Size our ground. So this just suggests how lives have been violently cut down during the apartheid government's reign. So think of the Grim Reaper, and he's there with his scythe, just chopping cutting people's heads down and just taking lives. And then also think of the Group Areas Act that the apartheid government enforced. And plot our narrow cells of pain, defeat, and death. So the word plot there is a pun, right? So there's two different meanings of what the word plot there can be doing. it can one be saying that there is a plot of land and that plot of land is a grave, or it can be saying plot as in to plan evil things. This line basically highlights systematic oppression because we look at words like narrow cells, right? So narrow cells could mean like that their prison cells are actually like very narrow, so like very small and hard to like walk through, or like it's very hard to move through them. We can be looking at their graves, that they have very narrow small graves, or we could be looking at how their houses are cramped together, right? And the line painful, defeat, and death. So with death, we're basically looking at scarcity and poverty, right? So we're looking at how the apartheid government has caused this scarcity, this suffering, this pain. All of this has just been caused by the apartheid regime. Better we should die than we should lie down. And the final statement is basically a line of defiance, right? The poet is basically saying it is better for us to resist and then die than for us to surrender to oppression, or for us to passively survive, right? And lie down there, what it means is to surrender or to submit. So he's basically saying it is better for us to go and die fighting for the freedom that we want than for us to lie down and be submissive to the system that doesn't even want us. And then another thing we ought to note is that this poem ends with no punctuation marks. Yeah? So this just shows that the fight continues, the resistance continues, the struggle continues. We're just going to look at the mood. So basically the mood of this poem is a sad, melancholic poem when we're looking at stanza 1. Then the poem shifts in stanza 2 to a more vengeful, fighting for freedom. We aren't gonna stand for this. Okay, then we're gonna look at some poetic devices. So I think there are other imageries in this poem, but the main ones that stick out is the personification. It is something that is very prominent in this poem. Then we have the capital letters. So we have capital letters in various spots to draw attention and to emphasize certain words. Then we have the exclamation mark. This is just a call to order, a call to action. Yes, that's what I want to say. This is just a call to action, and it is also there to emphasize strong emotions. Then when we're looking at the format or the structure of this poem, we have 2 equal stanzas now, and then this poem follows a rhyming scheme of A-A-B, or C-C-D, and basically this poem is supposed to mirror the funeral rites ceremony procedure. Thank you guys. That was my poem analysis on the poem at the funeral. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what are your thoughts on this poem and if there are any other poems you'd like me to get to later. Bye.